Godzilla Minus One, I really wish I had seen this in a theater. I really, really do.
I know, dude. I'm a fan. I was so disappointed I didn't.
Directed by Takashi Yamazaki. I don't know if a lot of these actors are famous. I assume they're well known in Japan. All new to me. This is a very human story. One thing that just hooked me immediately about this movie was that opening scene where he lands in that area next to the beach and they get together, the pilot. And the monster shows up and there's no build up. He's just there. And it's just the way it was done. There was no bullshit tease. You know what I mean? It was just getting to the point. And I've got to say, I knock CGI a lot. And I've said this in a previous podcast. The human eye is smart enough. It can tell when something's CGI, whether it's real or not. This is the first movie, television show, whatever, I can think of that I've ever seen where this is simply the best CGI I've ever seen on a creature in my entire life. It was incredible. The way this monster looked was amazing. As far as I could see, it was flawless throughout the whole picture. Did you notice the same thing?
Yeah, it's funny because I started watching other reviews and they say like, by the way, it's also great to hear. They said 10 to 15 million. And I guess recently the director was like 15 million. He's like, yeah, I fucking wish. So I bet it was less, even less, which is just utterly insane.
Yeah.
But then, so I watched reviews and you're like, yeah, even though sometimes you can tell the deterioration. See, I'm like, I didn't. I thought the whole way. This is the best looking monster I've ever seen. It looks like a fucking animal.
Yeah.
You're like, yeah, that's a naturally occurring animal. That's in, like they shot it with a, camera. It's a naturally occurring animal.
And I don't have great needs as far as Godzilla is concerned, but this is exactly how I wanted Godzilla to look. It was perfect. When he's coming through the water and you can see his eyes and the detail on his entire body, the scales, everything, it's next level, just good looking. It was perfect. And the scenery, the settings too, because they're using these kind of grand gestures with all these ships being destroyed and the ocean moving and everything. And it was flawless, man. It was so beautiful.
Yeah, that's why I love the term overproduced. It's like, okay, I mean, it's an easy analogy. There's tons of beautiful women I see. I'm like, wow, it's beautiful. And then you'll see like, some Instagram model and they'll like do the lip thing. And you're like, no, hold on. You actually really didn't need a lip thing. Please stop. Gotta do the buccal fat removal. And you're like, wait, stop. You really need to stop. You look beautiful. Why are you doing this?
Yeah.
And that's how these movies, they look the best. They look like video games. They all look like video games. I expected video games to be like over the top cutscene, like dragons and wizards and freaking robots and laser. But I'm like, okay, this looks, overproduced, cartoony. I expect it to be a video game. I don't expect my movies to be video games.
Yeah.
And these top production ones, you're like, it's the colors. The colors are too bright, right? They don't like blend in well with the background. And I just said, like the scenes where it was like in Tokyo. I mean, I think that was green screen work. It was really well done. Like it looked like they were in Tokyo and there was a monster walking around in Tokyo. I was trying to look for like cracks in it. Like, am I missing something? Like it looks real.
In 1940s Tokyo. It was perfect. I guess my one critique there, and maybe this is intentional, I'm sure this director is very familiar with the Godzilla franchise, was a lot of the destruction that he was causing. And then you cut to the 6 or 7 people that are experiencing maybe a shift in the boat or the buildings falling over and they're sliding. The boat in particular, I felt like the drama on the personal level wasn't matching the action that was happening with the creature. Does that make sense? It was a little underplayed with the people as far as kind of what you think they would be experiencing if a boat was capsizing or something like that. But that's just a subtle critique that bothered me zero, but I just noticed it.
Yes, and then near the end I started watching it, like when they were fascinated with, the plane coming in and saving the day. Like I was watching their reactions. I agree. Some were out of sync.
Well, it's really hard to match those up. Because you're not, none of the actors are seeing a playback. This is all director based, right? He has to film the action. The action's not even being seen. He's got it in his mind as far as what the computers are going to do, what they're going to show. And he's directing this group of actors, whether they're experienced or not, who knows? But he's directing them on what they should do and how they should react and how big they should go. So that's a challenge to match that, if you think about it.
Yeah, and I did some research. So the actor, 31, he's been active for 25 years. He was a child actor. He was supposed to get like a 1% chance of living. He had to be in the hospital for 7 months of when he was born because he was so frail and tiny. And they kind of told him like, hey, he's not going to live very long. So his mom was like, I want to immortalize him and make sure he has a footprint on society. So she wanted him to be a child actor.
Really?
So the main actor is very well known apparently. He was 25 years in the industry.
Wow, he was a voice in Spirited Away.
Yeah, I saw that.
That's considered one of the greatest I don't know, anime or animated films of all time. I still haven't seen it, but that was 2001.
Yeah, it's disappointing. Watch it.
Oh, it is?
Let me backpedal so people don't get mad at me. That's not too bad. Neither is Howl Moving Castle, but no, Howl Moving Castle is the dumbass one. I want you to watch it. You should watch it and be like,
should I?
What?
Should I?
Yeah, I want
should
you
I
to
spend
watch
2.5 hours of my life? Okay.
Yes, you should. It's like the Godfather of anime, according to everyone else. That's why I want you to watch it. And you'll be like, oh, wait. Even Akira. Well, I won't go to Akira. I think I'm going to make people are going to like try and murder us. Akira's visuals are incredible, number one. But like, yeah, some of these you go back with and you're like, it's like fucking Dune. You're like, am I missing something? Like, this is weird and nonsensical. Howl Moving Castle is weird and not like in a like Alice in Wonderland, fanciful, fever dream. It's fucking weird.
Do you have in your mind a top anime film of all time?
Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust, the second one. The visuals are incredible. The storyline is nothing incredible, by the way. They combine traditional, drawing? I don't want to use the wrong term, and a little CGI and put it together, but it's really fantastic to look at. So is Akira. They hand draw every fucking frame. It's amazing. Back to Godzilla. The apparently director's been around for a long time.
Do you know why it was called Minus One? I didn't look at that. Is it because it's kind of an origin story? Is that why?
Yeah, it's a prequel. I think it's the cleverest title I've seen in a long time. I was like, why? I'm like, oh, prequel, right? Instead of calling it Godzilla, the prequel, you call it Minus One. Yeah. It was the origin story of Godzilla. So we did do nuclear testing apparently on the Bikini Island after we dropped the bombs, which is crazy. That did happen, and apparently some like Japanese fisher boat went out there and got hit, something like that. But they used that as the backstory of how he got more powerful. I had to kind of watch the reviews because I missed some things. They did it so quick, but that montage of the American voiceover, we were doing nuclear testing, which gave it more power. And then they said, hey, the Soviets think we might be doing like a nuclear attack, whatever, and we're in the Cold War right now, so we can't help you, Japan, with any fallout. Good luck. Meanwhile, I don't know if you picked up on this, the reason why people are like, why they have civilians helping at the end with the whole Navy and why they have to fly in a jet. Because after World War II, the deal was you're going to decommission your entire military because you tried to, perpetuate the war. You can't have a military. They weren't allowed to have a military anymore. Yeah, that was the agreement. So I don't know if people picked up on it. That's why people be like, why are civilians coming in? Because they didn't have a military or a navy or any ships or aircraft. They're all decommissioned.
I thought the use of the moment in time was very, very clever and very well played out. It was really interesting to see how they depicted Tokyo in the 1940s after all the devastation, and how you would assume people kind of had to recollect their lives and rebuild, which is hard to imagine. But it's pretty incredible to think that this was, 1945 it's a long time ago, sure, but it's really not that long ago. Yeah, I love the human element. I said that, and I think the use of it here. So I've seen bits and pieces of other Godzilla movies. I saw the one with Matthew Broderick. And with all these movies, I noticed with myself, I usually kind of wind up pulling for the monster because it's by far the most interesting part of the movie. You want to see it just destroy things. That's why you're there. It's why you bought a ticket, which may sound fucked up, but it's true. But this didn't distract you. It didn't disappoint you when it wasn't focused on the monster. And you really kind of cared, and you could relate to the human element. And these three people who came together randomly, and they essentially became a family. It's some really nice elements of the story. I thought it was cool. It was well executed, and it was nice. It was very nice.
Yeah, I definitely root for Godzilla in the other ones. I think he's usually in Los Angeles or New York, so if he lays waste to that place, I'm just happy as clam.
And the way the monster was depicted is kind of not being mindless, but just slow moving, plodding along. It was just such a perfect representation, I think, of what Godzilla is supposed to be.
You know why I liked it is because here's the bar. This is what makes me want to write. By the way, I talk all the time. That's why that guy who wrote Up in the Air, the lawyer turned screenwriter, became a writer, because he's like, I looked at the most dog shit screenplays and saw how much money they made. He's like, I know I could write better than that, right? So where am I going with this? This movie was great. It was very great. It was top tier, done by someone who's done it for a long time, because he has a director. But there's nothing really over the top about it. It just follows the fucking rules.
Yeah.
There's rules. As I always say, I don't want either. There are rules. You can break it very rarely. I know I'm a broken record on this. You can break it in small doses. You can't break the entire rule set. Yeah. You can break a rule or two, and it's very hard to pull off. It's extremely hard to pull off. They somewhat did it here. In fact, they turned a weak coward into almost making me forget about it. I still think he was a little weak coward somewhat, but they kind of did help with that. So the point is, like, there's a protagonist, there's a character arc, they have a ragtag crew brought together, there's a big showdown with a monster at the end, there's a inner struggle, which is representative of the external struggle, which is the bigger fucking narrative. Jaws is not about a shark. Godzilla is not about a monster.
Yeah.
Godzilla is about a guy finding redemption after collecting himself after the shambles of the war with this existential threat that destroyed everything, and getting his redemption to oversee that, whatever, right? Like, there's nothing really brilliant about it all. It's just done right.
Yeah, and this harkens back to kind of the golden age of movies, which I think you would argue was found in the 90s. Other people could argue a different era, but it certainly hasn't been there in a while. But man, it's refreshing to see something like this that, yes, takes very simple concepts, executes the display, in my opinion, flawlessly.
Yeah, I feel like we're not even talking enough about all that. There's so many great things, but I love, the nuclear angle, the like picking up the past, the kamikaze pilot thing, and there's some of the truth there, like they didn't have ejection seats because they're kamikaze pilots.
Yep.
And they didn't want to give them a way out. And then there's a great scene where he's like, this is about us so willing to give up life. Right, that one that scientist is talking, he's like we should not celebrate willingly giving up our youth. So there is a big narrative there about like the future of the youth, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Don't pay for your future with youth. That's what the Germans did at the end. They had fucking Hitler youths, teenage boys, dying on the front lines. Look at Ukraine right now. It's fucking horrifying and depressing. It should make you cry. There's fucking old men and people trying to flee the country and they can't, because they're being rounded up by the police to go fight in a war, right? They're throwing their youth away. That are men, by the way, men, and your future is destroyed.
Yeah, it's a pro-citizen or pro-community, almost anti-government story.
They talk about the Japanese cup propaganda. Back then, Japan they wouldn't be honest about anything because they thought it was helping morale. Like probably, all road to hell is paved by good intentions. They would kind of like now they do it with the media now, like movies that are terrible, this it wasn't that bad. They would do that with their propaganda in Japan. Thought they were helping morale and protecting the citizens, but they're just adding neuroses to their society.
There's a line that I wanted to bring up to you. It made me think about you as soon as it was said. It was when the, don't know the character's name, the guy who had his arm injured is following, and he's basically begging them to serve, to go into battle. And the older gentleman who's seen more life turns to him and says, never serving in a war is something to be grateful for. How do you feel about that line? Or do you have any feelings towards that? Because you have had experience.
It's a great question to ask, and thanks. I went to this Bitcoin conference recently, and actually my old friend I went to infantry school with, who went special forces after infantry, and has all these like top tier, like no shit, like Navy SEAL, Delta Force, Marine Force Recon, like tier 1 special operators that are a part of the Bitcoin Veterans Network. By the way, Bitcoin's up to almost 90,000. Anyway.
Jesus Christ, are you serious, dude?
88,000.
I'm sorry.
In any case, I don't know how to I go to this Bitcoin conference, and there's a place here called Bitcoin, I think, Park in Nashville, and they did the Bitcoin World Conference this year here. The Bitcoin conference this year was done here in Nashville. So worldwide, like thousands of people showed up. They went to Bitcoin Park with the Bitcoin Veterans Network, so it was a place for like civilian normal people, normally Bitcoiners, to learn from veterans. And some guy is like, hey, he's like, my son's been thinking about, what do you think you should tell my son about joining it? And every single person in the panel was like, don't tell your son to join the military. Do not join the military. They're all like, don't do it. So my advice is, it's a great line because it's true. Yeah. When you really go back and look at these wars and realize there's a chance that maybe in human history we've never even had a war that was legitimate, like ever. Because even for a war to be legitimate, there has to be an absolute evil. And to think there's absolute evil is not how the human nature works. People are not absolutely evil. Yeah. They're good people turned a certain way. That's why it's great to do it in movies with aliens or like demons, because those things are inherently evil. People are not inherently evil. So it's really hard to be like, this is a legitimate war, like a legitimate evil, undeniably, objectively, that we were destroying. Yeah. So number one, it may have never happened in history. And number two, these wars, when you look into them, are just throwing male cattle for some cause that you probably don't even care about, and there's an underlying reason for it that doesn't matter even to what you like. It's some manipulative crap. So that's coming from me in close combat arms, top tier dudes being like, no, looking back, don't do it. Be grateful you don't have a war. Be happy you don't.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that is probably another reason that makes this film so great is the only war worth fighting, really, is the one against something like Godzilla. And you bring the citizens together and they And they do that.
And Godzilla is a force of nature. It doesn't have to be, it could be the hurricane that was recently on the whole eastern side of our country.
Yeah.
That's when they get together on.
And the whole irony of it is Godzilla was created or baptized by a nuclear bomb. That's how he came to be.
Great way of putting it. Yeah, and I like also, you're saying something about his, movements or whatever else. Another thing I love, nobody humanized this stupid thing. I hate when they do like they doesn't remember Avatar 2? They said the whales were smarter than the smartest human or whatever.
Yeah.
They're like,
come on. Okay.
Like,
I'm
I
listening.
like that Godzilla willingly fell in the trap, because what would happen if you had a dog, you wanted to chase you, smack it in the mouth. It's going to chase you, trust me. Just like this it's a creature.
Yeah.
Not smart. It's a dumb creature. It's a dumb fucking animal.
It is. Whales are smart though.
Yeah, boy. That's why I liked it, because they didn't do any our studies show his brain is this big, and he's surely no, he was like a dumb animal that was just like a force of nature that just, it wasn't doing anything wrong. It was like, hey, this thing's noisy, I'm going to break the ship. Hey, this thing shot me, I'm going to blow it up with a laser.
He's just he's almost kind of fat. He moves around and just fucking destroys shit. It's kind of like Michael Myers, right? Like the mindless plotting, just zero emotion. I'm just going to go kill. Or if you get in my way, you're fucked. And I have zero emotion towards anything that ever happens unless you shoot me, and then I want to come get you. It's like the plane. He wants to swat the fly. It's just like that kind of reaction. It's that sort of thing.
Yeah, no, because there's usually some stupid scene like that where they're like, let's not forget, he's smarter than we think, and he might no, he's not going to catch on to the ship's wrapping him up. He'll probably fall right into the trap and get wrapped up and be like, what the fuck's happening? Yeah. What's this Freon guy? I love that. That's a good example of screenwriting, man. We all know you're going to show down. You all know you're going to show down. Now, is the bomb in the mouth kind of Independence Day we've seen a million times? Sure. But leading up to that, it was cool. You're right. If you spend the thing down like a scuba diver, pressurize it 1,500 fucking feet and then bring it up quickly, your head will explode. And I'm like, that's really smart.
It was smart.
That's a cool plot point.
Yeah.
Great, because the visual, I thought it was an amazing plot point. Go ahead.
I do have one critique. And I'm going to ask you if you have any about the entire film. Just one. You know how you need it for effect. I get it. But they're in the middle of the ocean, presumably, based on the camera shots and everything. And Godzilla is just able to stand up.
Why did you mention that? Why? I thought the same thing. I'm like, wait a minute. What is he standing on?
I know.
I kept thinking that.
We need it. We need it for the film. I get it. But fuck. He's in the middle of the ocean, and he's standing up, and then all of a sudden he sinks to the bottom. Okay, I'll let it pass. But it's a flaw.
Let's talk about bad screenwriting. I'm visiting you in Vegas, and you're talking to your girlfriend. You walk to the room, and we're talking about you, as you know we are. And then you walk by quickly, and I'm like, yeah, but in the end, he's a freaking loser, if you want me to be honest. And then you walk by again.
Yeah.
Rather than asking me what I was talking about, you end our friendship, right? That's bad fucking writing. You know what else is bad writing? I'm standing already secure. Why can't I think? Not a hallway. Between two buildings, what?
Like an alley.
I'm standing in the alley already. You, woman, could just fall on me, which would take the same muscle movement as pushing me. But instead, you push me, even though I'm already in the alley, and sacrifice yourself.
Thank you.
That was such a dumb scene.
Thank you. Point two, dramatic effect. It was effective. It was heartbreaking because you think she's dead. But yes, it was just that dramatic long push. She saves him, and she's blown away. You guys could have run over there just as actually probably easier than pushing him. You could have just dipped out.
She could have fell on him.
Yeah.
Right, and maybe lost a foot. Who knows what?
Exactly. Or the draft takes her away because she's on top of him and she has no security. Something like that. You're right.
That's even. Yeah, I think there we go. Fall on her, and then the draft, that would have been cool. That would have been believable.
What more heartbreaking way to lose a loved one is they're protecting you with their own body, literally, and then they get swept away. That's very sad. So that could have been done different. You're right.
Yeah, and if they were going to kill her off, I was pissed. I knew two things I predicted against some bad screenwriting. Here's what you do. Let me redo the ejection scene. You don't show him the handle to eject the bombs and then go off camera and accurately foreshadow what you did twice. First, you looked at the fucking thing. All you do is this. You say, make sure to release this lever for the bombs. The thing is, why would you have to release the lever for bombs anyway? Don't you just push a button? Who knows what? He should have just said, pull this lever when you're ready. And what it should have done is ejected him with him not knowing, right? To really test his mettle to the very last moment. So he pulls the thing right before it's going to go in, and it ejects him. He didn't know. You get saved. Instead, they tell us And they ruin all the fucking like build
Over explain. You really do. And that would have been an incredible connection to have for those two characters when the guy does eject and he's up in the sky and he realizes, oh, this man saved my life by telling me to do this. Yeah, missed opportunity there, I think.
And they're minor contrivances, but like the killing her off thing too. Sorry, that was the other one. When the telegram came up, I was like, okay. As soon as it happened, I was like, okay, good. They're not going to kill her off. That was dumb. If they would have killed her off, it would have been just like why is this Pagliacci the most depressing thing? Like, why?
As a director, you got to think before going into production about every possible thing that can go wrong with a production like this, but not obsess over it at the same time, because then it's going to distract you from your main task. But I would think in a situation like that, where he visualized how this is going to go, where she's pushing him down the corridor, it was probably tightened up a lot, but just the way they shot it and the way it had to be edited, it didn't really work out probably as well as he had hoped. That would be my guess. The intention was there, but the execution just fell a little flat.
Yeah, and it's funny you say the visual. Like, we know storyboards. I've seen some movies before where they're like, we had like 6,000 storyboards, right? Like, we spent like, months, So I'm going to assume they did the same level of rigor or some level. Look, they know the shots. Okay, they do know the shots. Maybe it's kind of what you're saying. Again, I just don't get the obvious ones. Like, I'm talking about the eject thing. You and I both know, like I'm saying objectively, not objectively, the best thing you could have said was, when you're ready to pull the bombs, pull this handle. That's the scene. Then you move on. And then we're all thinking he's going to die. He pulls the handle and ejects. That would have been visually perfect.
It would have.
To see. You would have been like, oh, I really thought he was going to die. Like,
again, missed opportunity. And I think I already know what score I'm going to give this, but you saying that, I think if we had that payoff on top of the loved ones reuniting, that would have been a really nice cap to this story.
It's also obvious when you think about why. This guy doesn't trust him. He's not going to trust him until the mission's over and he proves it. He would never give him an out before the deed, therefore giving him an out to disappoint him and break his trust again. He would give the guy no option. Prove it to me. Like what they do with if you watch Kingsman, they make you shoot your dog. You and keep him forever. And the guy can't go through with it, but the girl does, and there's a blank in it.
Jesus.
Right. They don't actually, it's a blank.
Oh,
right.
Okay.
But they make you go to the very last second. That's what you do. That's how you test trust when they don't know. It fits. So, oh, well, I didn't know. So if you're curious, anime, they do that smash your head on the table thing as a way to show deference.
It's kind of like the ultimate bow.
Yeah, it's the ultimate bow. I didn't know that was a real thing humans did.
Yeah, I was wondering about that too. That's good to know.
Yeah, in anime, you see it all the time. A lot, and then they'll do another thing. This is an anime thing, but I guess this is a Japanese thing too. It's a nice moment from the guy who hated him. He says something like, he says, "You're ready now." And then he says, it'd be like me, like you saying, like, "Daniel, you're ready now." I'm like, Matthew. They say their name, as a way to say, oh, they happen to the animes all the time. It'd be like, "And that's why I love you." And it's like, Daniel. Mm-hmm. They'll say their name. It happens all the time in anime. And I guess it's a Japanese, kind of like a acknowledgement of the moment. But that's common. And now I saw it in the movie, live action movie. I'm like, oh, I guess that's a thing they actually
That's
do.
Cool. It's good to be aware of the cultural differences there. Another one that I noticed, I was going to ask if you were familiar with this, was when Godzilla is destroyed and he sinks, all the soldiers, they salute very calmly. They're looking and they salute, instead of what you would assume, say, an American situation, if they did this in the States, all the soldiers would lose their shit and just jump all over each other and scream hooray for joy, right? There was that difference. Is that part of their culture as well, just to calmly salute your enemy when they go down? I
know their culture is very much based on honor and respecting your enemies, and even the kamikaze stuff, especially in The Last Samurai. I think he does seppuku.
Yeah.
And people, they don't make a big deal because he's supposed to. I hope they're saluting Godzilla. I don't know if they're saluting the guy or Godzilla in that scene. I'm pretty sure it's Godzilla because they keep poking.
I kind of like the idea if it is Godzilla. I think that's cool.
I think I watched and I was wondering, but yeah, I think so too. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm glad we got into this, man. It was good. If it happens to show its way back into theaters or I have a chance, I'm definitely going to jump on it. I'd like to know more. There's a very subtle element of cheesiness, and maybe that's just a cultural difference or me being ignorant. I like the fact that they had just a little bit of cheesiness that was tied into older Godzilla films in this, but it wasn't overdone. I think it was a very good balance, and you had to have that element, I guess, to cater to that core audience, which I assume is massive in Japan, if not all over the world, for these kind of movies.
It's funny because my only exposure to Japanese film is anime. And video games, by the way, but video games don't translate like this. And I'll give you an example. They'll have like a zany professor character or something. They always do this, like the smart one. I'm not trying to be insulting of the language, but they'll be like, and they'll say it like kind of like in a zany way at the end. And if you notice, that professor kept doing that, like being silly. And I guess that is a part of like live action culture. Like I've seen it in animes all the time. Yeah. You'll see that all the time. It's like a cartoon thing, like when the guy's eyes come out of his head because there's a hot girl. But like, I guess not. I guess it's also part of the live action culture. So I think it's where cheesiness comes from. I think it's built in. I don't know.
Sure. Yeah, I think so. From what I understand, their communication in language is based on the tone of your voice and how long you can draw out a word and stuff like that. So I'm sure that's a big part of it. Scores. Let's do scores. What do you say?
Another great one. Whatever is we do 2.5, 3. 3 is the top, all time. This is close. So I think this is like 2. We do 2.5, but it's like it's right there between 2.5 and 3. I think it was exceptional film. I say 2.5 out of 3.
Are we allowed to do 2.75? Because it's up there.
That's where we got to redo it. Yeah, let's just go back to the like we did last week. This is like it's rivaling Joker, but I won't give it higher. I think I gave Joker 9. Whatever I gave Joker minus 1.1.
Yeah. Okay. And we're just going to pretend that the Joker sequel, even though we haven't seen it, never happened. But yeah, that's a really high bar. I've got, I'll go 2.5, 2.75 if that's allowed. I mean, this is a movie that everyone should watch, period. You don't even have to be a fan of monster movies or anything like that, or creature, whatever explosion. This is a great fucking story.
But I know God, it makes me upset I'm not doing it more. Because if it's my narrative, sure, I'll say that. Why? Because the theme. You start with the theme and then you do everything after. Everything comes after. Why am I making this movie a theme? And then you go from there and everything will work. Everything will work. Because life works that way. Like, I want to have a child. To save the marriage, it's not going to work. To make her happy, it's not going to work. Because I should, it's not going to work. Because I'm so happy, I want to spread more joy in this world and have a child. Like, that's the right answer. It can't go wrong that way. If you have the right intentions, it can't go wrong.
Yep.
If you have the right theme.
Agreed. Let this be the catalyst for you.
Yeah.
It's not too late.
Oh, another great thing. Guess what, Hollywood? And then this is obvious. I hate having to say this, but I'll play the game. I'm not a cowardly Japanese, small-framed, unable to say I like a girl. Make everything you want, right? And I still identify with this movie. You know why? Because I don't need it to be me. Mm-hmm. It can be a Japanese. It can be a black person. It can be a gay person. It doesn't matter. I don't need my representation. You stupid fucking industry.
Thank you for that. That's important. Yeah. Because ironically, it makes it more racist when you switch it and try to pander and cater to people's complaints.
Yeah, it's like, oh, now you're being racist, right?
There it is.
Martin Luther King, the white guy. It's like,
yeah.
What?
There it is.